Hi. Hello, everyone. Great show.
Thank you. Same to you.
Give yourself a pat on the back. Why not? Really enjoyed the films. Really great perspective. I'm so excited about this particular night because by doing the shorts, we were able to cover so much ground. And that's part of why Sandra and I started this, because we wanted to not only give people an outlet to celebrate Carnival online, but also to educate people about Carnival, like someone like me who is not Caribbean. I'm just a cultural tourist, but I've always, had these questions. So I'm so excited to present tonight. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for showing up. To Global Caribbean Culture, Resistance, and Cultural Fusion. We've got, a star-studded panel here. So what we're going to do is have a 30-minute discussions. I have a few questions prepared for all of you, but, you could feel free to discuss amongst yourselves. And, it's just going to flow. And we have a chat on the side if there's any, thing you want to tell me. And then in the last 15 minutes, we're going to get questions from the audience. So, while we're talking, it's going to be thought-provoking. They're going to ask us questions and then we'll address them. So, first I would like to introduce Janera Solomon of Fieldwork Arts. She's a cultural strategist, curator, producer, and she's based in Pittsburgh. She's a nonprofit executive, and she's recognized for her creative energy. She brings passion and a wide breadth of experience to cultural projects locally, nationally, and internationally. And I would also like to congratulate Jared Prima on the birth of his newborn son. Yes, he said, woo. We missed your sound check, but we made it today, and that was great. But you had more important things to do. So that's wonderful. Jared Prima is a Trinidad and Tobago cultural activist, teacher, dramatist, and performer. His work exposes the world to the immense potential of Caribbean cultural stories and folklore, and he is the director of Diablesse Curse. Also, next we have Millicent Johnnie. She's a choreographer and collaborator with Mondo Bizarro. A native of Lafayette, Louisiana, she received both her MFA and BFA in dance at Florida State University. She teaches on the dance faculty at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Are you in Texas now?
No, yeah. I'm actually no longer at SMU. I'm in Tallahassee. Sorry. Yeah.
My bad. We had an old bio. Forgive me, please. And that's another thing too. You guys, I'm just going to introduce you, but feel free if I'm leaving out any of your accomplishments, feel free. Okay.
No, it's great. Yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. I'm the producer of Diablesse Curse. I'm based in Tallahassee, Florida. I have an MFA in film and an MFA in choreography and performance. And I run a small media company here in Tallahassee called Millicent Johnnie Films and 319 Productions.
Fabulous.
So that's me.
Fabulous. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes. And we have Christoper Laird. Christoper Laird is the director of Paradise Lost. He's produced over 300 documentaries, dramas, and other video productions with Banyan Ltd. over the past 40 years, garnering a score of national, regional, international awards. He's also overseen the establishment of what's arguably the world's largest collection on Caribbean culture on video in the Caribbean Film and Video Archive. In 2003, he founded, with Errol Fabian, the region's first all Caribbean free-to-air television station, Gael. So, that's interesting. We'll get to talk about that. Definitely want to introduce my partner in this, Sandra A.M. Bell, producer, production stage manager, CEO of Journey Agents, artist booking, and special event company. She heads up the Brooklyn-based JouvayFest Collective, and there's so much stuff that they do, but I'll just tell you a little bit. She specializes in world music and performance art. She's a third-generation Carnival costume designer from the talented Morris family of Belmont, Port of Spain, Trinidad. Her clients include Apollo Theater, Central Park Summer Stage, and Lincoln Center Out of Doors, among many others. And she has a band called Pagwan Mass. She can tell you about that. She's a Renaissance woman. And those slides in the beginning were images of the JouvayFest and their international travels. I think some of them were in Africa. They do, education around Carnival. I just think this whole thing is fascinating. But tonight, just we're fresh on the heels of Ash Wednesday. I'm going to ask Sandra to kind of clarify and explain the Carnival calendar for those of us who don't understand what's happening and why this is important right now. So we just had Ash Wednesday last Wednesday. Sunday was Dimanche Gras. Monday was Lundi Gras. And then Tuesday is Mardi Gras. Why do we have Mardi Gras in Trinidad or wherever? Because I thought that was from New Orleans. Please help me.
Hi, everybody. Happy to see all of you and meet you, or whatever you call this, digital meeting. And I'm glad to see that film again, Paradise Lost, Christoper. Glad to meet you, because I never knew who you were. I never saw your face, but know Peter from a long time. Anyway, back to the question, which is why there's a Dimanche Gras and a Lundi Gras and a Mardi Gras. So it's all based on the French influence in all of these places, which of course the French were in Trinidad, they were in St. Lucia, they were in Grenada, they were in, and they still are, in Martinique, Guadeloupe, French Guiana, and of course New Orleans. So this carnival business, carnavale of the flesh, is all based on the Catholic or Episcopalian, whatever you want to call, either one. It's the same thing. Calendar, the one that the Pope in Rome sets up. He sets up when Ash Wednesday comes, when Easter comes, and this is why the Ash Wednesday changes every year. It's never the same time. So it's based on what they do in the Vatican. And all the Francophone places, past and present, follow that calendar in terms of when the carnival season is, which is from January. In New Orleans, it starts like the 5th of January, right? Right, Millicent? And goes until midnight Ash Wednesday. So there's all the frolic, wine drinking, whining, eating whatever, doing whatever, having a good time, free yourself up to party all night and all day if you can. And then comes Ash Wednesday, when all of that stops. You fast for 40 days during the Lenten season, because that's when it starts. You don't eat meat, you don't drink, you pardon yourself for all the whatever you did during that carnival season. and and you go on a fast of many things. But that was, I would say, more in the old days. We carnival people don't adhere to it as much, even though there are people who still go to church on Ash Wednesday and get some great ashes. Now, I heard that the priest had little pots of ashes in plastic bags for you to go and get your own ashes because of the COVID. But a lot of us don't follow that doctrine as much as we did. The whole thing with the Catholic Church, uh, not as strong as it used to be and as influential. So, but still and yet, Ash Wednesday marks the time that, okay, I have enough partying and time to rest and time to, like, at least, purge ourselves of all that alcohol and every single thing that we could see we eat, right? And of course, you're praying and forgiving and all of that. But like I said, we don't adhere to that like we used to. And I'm sure there's a beach party going on somewhere in Trinidad. I can bet you. Anyhow, I just wanted to give you that so we could lay out the timeline and why. Right now, a lot of the countries that belong to the Francophone Caribbean islands, they changed their carnival dates because of tourism and because of marketing, like St. Lucia, like Grenada, right? They used to have um, um, the all carnival all at the same time. but Trinidad, being very dominant, would draw most of the people to Trinidad, and the other islands weren't getting their due. So they changed the dates to accommodate more economic benefits, and of course, giving people a chance to go carnival hopping. So you could go Trinidad, then you could go come up to the United States, then go back down to Grenada, and go back down to Saint Lucia, and you could just be partying all year long.
Sounds like a dream. It sounds like a dream.
So
Thank you, Sandra.
The layout so that you understand that why
exactly
rites of spring and Catholic religion.
Yeah, and then it's before Lent and Easter, and we'll come back to that. Right. So thank you, Sandra. Janera, why did I invite you here? I mean, Janera is our own Pittsburgher here. Millicent actually mentioned your name, and you guys had worked together with Bambula's musician Brew. Yeah. So, but also you have another connection to the carnival because of the steel pan, because you're from a very well-known family here in Pittsburgh. You're the daughter of Phil Solomon, steel pan builder, composer, steel pan arranger, and he also founded Solomon Steel Pan Company, first steel pan manufacturing company in the United States. Yes. So, I wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously, you could talk about whatever you want. Bambula Musician Brew, that is New Orleans. And I do want to engage that with you and Millicent too, because this is, once again, it's a global phenomenon. But I was so amazed when I learned about the creation of the steel pan, that it's actually a resistance. When I think steel pan, it's Disneyland, but actually it came out of a resistance tradition. And so could you shed some light?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Great job with the films. Great job, everybody, with the films. It was really nice to watch. It's nice to be here. I mean, there's so much I could say about this, and we, don't have enough time. But, a couple of things I think I want to say. First of all, Caribbean culture is so complex, and I think that's maybe the takeaway that everybody that's watched these films tonight and listening to this discussion should remember. There's a tendency to oversimplify all aspects of Caribbean culture, and frankly, I'd say many aspects of Black culture. There's a tendency to oversimplify, not only from people who are outside of the culture, but even people who are inside the culture. I think there's kind of a tendency to downplay or undervalue the complexity and the creativity of whatever it is actually happening. So a steel pan is is a perfect example. It is a resistance instrument. It's a contemporary instrument. Emerging in the 1930s and 40s, there are many debates about the history and the roots. We don't have to go to those debates today. The fact of the matter is, though, that it's evolved from a group of people, mostly poor, mostly Black, mostly male, steel pan makers, and the instrument now is a worldwide instrument. It's played around the world: Japan, Germany, England, all over the United States. Here in Pittsburgh, it's all over. And so the thing I think for me and my sisters, and you had a clip from my sister Lee Solomon in her program early on. We grew up, the four of us grew up playing steel band music and playing it very, very seriously, playing it very seriously, playing it in our high school music programs and playing it professionally after college. And I think, lots of people said to us, why are you doing that? You're not going to be a musician. You're not living in New York. You're not playing during carnival time. Why are you taking this so seriously? We spent hours and hours of our lives rehearsing, and I think it's a part of something that my father said actually to me today, which is about trying to find a way to speak for yourself. In the first film, there was a quote, I wrote it down. The woman says, "Your music is poetry. Don't be afraid to use your voice." And steel pan music, for everyone who all of the pioneers, the first generation, the second generation, and even for people doing it today, every time you pick up a pair of mallets and you actually stand in the pan yard and you practice and you practice and you practice. All of that is about your voice. It's about resisting, resisting, I think, a dominant narrative about what's important, about what's valuable. But it's not only like this constant pushing back. It's also an expression, which I think all these films speak to. It's about, we have things to say. As Caribbean people, we have a lot to say. As Black people, we have a lot to say. As people, with complicated histories, we have a lot to say. So steel pan music is about that. And, there's so much more I can say about it, but I'm going to stop there. And we can talk more. And it was super awesome. I should say this. I spent 11 years producing at the Kelly Strayhorn Theater. And one of the things I'm so, so very proud of is all of the international programming that we brought to the theater, and all the ways we brought the world to this corner, this intersection here in East Liberty in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Millicent and Cleo Parker Dance was a huge part of that. So I'm so happy to see her here today.
Same here. Sandra was a part of the early development stages of Bambula Musicians Brew. So it's nice to have the collective again together tonight, and to bring Jared and Christoper into that conversation as well. So I'm excited. I wanted to offer just something in response to these avenues of Carnival, where we see them as a means of protest and resistance. So Bambula Musicians Brew, we were looking at those forms of resistance through the Minstrels Carnival in New Orleans, and how it connected to the Minstrels Carnival in Cape Town. So that's how we kind of started that conversation. And to echo something that Janera just said, the complexities that come out of being in these cultural communities where, you have not been necessarily a part of the dominant narrative, or your experience hasn't been interwoven into the cultural fabric of these particular places. Even though we know that they exist, we know the contributions, that hasn't necessarily been a part of the narrative. And so for me, as a choreographer, as a director, as a filmmaker, producer, I've always been interested in amplifying those stories and amplifying those voices. So that's one reason I gravitated to working with Jared Prima for La Diablesse Curse. In addition to, going back to, that's another reason I gravitated to working with Janera and Kelly Strayhorn Theater for Bambula Musicians Brew. So I just wanted to kind of offer that to the conversation, add it to the pot.
Stir it in the pot. I love it. One thing I did, wanted to just highlight, drums were outlawed. Our last screening, we spoke to Dr. Godfrey Dunn and Professor Alvin Daniel, and we brought up the Cambrille riots. It happened in Port of Spain in 1881, and they outlawed African drumming because people were using it to communicate. So then they encouraged melodic instruments, and so then that's where the bamboo came, bamboo, and then it was also outlawed. So then steel pan was somehow born out of that, and steel pan stuck. So, I just thought that was like totally fascinating.
I'd like to add one thing to that. The drum was outlawed in every place in the United States except for New Orleans.
Oh,
and
really?
That is one of the main reasons. Yeah, that is one of the main reasons I think that we've been able to hold on to a lot of those African retentions in New Orleans, because our drum was never outlawed. It was protected in the place they call Congo. And
Congo Square.
It later became Congo Square, but it was Congo Plains before. It was the marketplace. And, you had these white businessmen coming from, up north, headed down south. They weren't interested in the marketplace. So they were able to drum. They were able to speak their mother tongues, their languages. They were able to practice their own spiritual traditions in this particular place. And because of that, we were able to hold on to ancient African and Caribbean traditions in New Orleans. That's the only place on this land that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could see the correlation with the costumes, and it's fascinating. So I'm just going to take a little detour. Hi, Mr. Laird. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks.
I wanted to talk to you about, Paradise Lost. Two questions for you. How did you meet Peter Minshall? How did you get involved with filming the Paradise Lost? Like, what was the creation of this documentary? Were you there, or did you come later? Peter Minshall, apparently he has a connection to Sandra's family as well. They've known him. I think he might have been, I don't want to say the wrong person, if it was your uncle who might have trained him. I mean, he received so much training, and I, researched it. It's amazing. And I have questions for you too about, I don't really understand how the whole race thing is playing out in Trinidad, because it just looks like one happy family. Even I saw on From the Land of the Hummingbird costume, Peter Minshall, that's his sister.
Right, Sherry.
That modeled the costume. So I have questions. I just have a lot of questions for you. But one thing he said that made an impression on me, he said, I don't make costumes, I make ways to express human energy. So I'm just really interested in this Minshall character, and, how did you get involved with the Paradise Lost?
Okay. I mean, I went to school with Minshall. I mean, I've known Minshall since I was a kid. So, but the Paradise Lost essentially is his first band. Minshall has done something like 26 bands since then. And, done performance. He did the opening ceremony for Barcelona Olympics, Atlanta Olympics, that sort of thing. So he's big now. But in 1976, he did Paradise Lost. And this was before video cameras were around. So we were very, nobody knew that a film existed of Paradise Lost on stage until Ray Funk, who wrote a book on Stephen Leung, the band leader, had an opening or launch of the book, and they showed films of Stephen Leung's bands, among which was Paradise Lost, and everyone was totally amazed that this existed. And when I saw that, I thought, this had to be documented properly, because there's a whole number of generations that don't know anything about that type of mass. Minshall, really, his last big band was probably around 2006. And but Carnival has changed so much. It's become very commercialized and very superficial in the masquerade and that sort of thing. People just don't know mass like that. And Paradise Lost also had within it the germs of all his other bands. It was like it was like a seed. Well, all the seeds of his other bands afterwards were in that one band. So we spent a lot of time trying to get the best transfer of that film. That film was done by George Tang, who is a relative of Stephen Leung, and he used to document every Stephen Leung band. He was also a cameraman for the Trinidad and Tobago television. So he would have a camera on one shoulder, filming for the television, and another camera for Stephen Leung. And you have to remember that there was no video there, it was all film. And what was so lucky about Paradise Lost was that he had a new camera, which was a Super 8 camera, and to change the film, you just had to take out a little cassette and put in another cassette of film. This was film, not video. So
I know
there was no sound, just the film. And so he didn't miss much, because he could change the film every 3 minutes. You had to put in a new reel. And in the old film, previously, he would have to put the camera in a black bag and change the film and that sort of thing. So this was very lucky that in 1976, he was able to film the film you saw, and he did it so expertly. And it's just amazing. When we saw that, I said, well, look, let me go to Peter and say, would you commentate the film and tell the story of how it came about? Because this is a piece of history, mass history. I wish we had something like this for George Bailey and for Saldana and all the earlier masters. So that's how it came about, and he agreed, and I said, okay, it's all. I don't want any color. You wear your normal black. We put you against a white wall, and because the only color must be the mask. Only the mask must have the real color. And so that was how we did it. And over 2 sessions, he did the interview. But he's such a master storyteller that, it's very little for me to do, except that we have a relationship. So it was relaxed. It came across very naturally. And that's how it came about.
That's fabulous. It's just, he seems like a genius or some type of visionary person. So, and that's what I'm curious about. Like, what was it before? I don't know. I wasn't there. But when he came out with the Land of the Hummingbird costume, it's considered groundbreaking for Trinidad. What was it before that made it so different?
Well, that was for, I think, a children's carnival queen thing in the early 70s. The thing is that a masquerade, traditionally up to then, a lot of it was sort of pageantry. It was, if you had these very elaborate costumes, I remember, you might have Visigoths with helmets and fur and all that sort of thing, and cloaks, and they would just go down the street like this. And it was all very stately and pageantry. But Minshall introduced something. He was influenced by Bailey as well. And it was what he introduced was a kinetic kind of mask. In other words, the mask only lived when it was danced. And so his costumes moved all over the place. And that was the big change. Apart from the wings, which he brought in, and the new technology, you see, with the use of aluminium and then later fiberglass rods and that sort of thing, you were able to make very light costumes. And so that you get the movement as well. Just a little movement with a fiberglass rod would send it all over the place. So that was the difference that he brought. But as I said, we've lost a lot of that. Everyone's in a bikini and pretends they're in Las Vegas. So.
Brazil.
Or Rio. It looks a bit like Rio.
I danced in Rio. That was fun.
If I could,
I want to do it.
If I could also offer, having studied theater and I've been directing plays for over 10 years, and I have worked with one of Minshall's great friends who we lost recently, Tony Hall, and he always spoke to Minshall's work, and I fully agree, as theater. That is what theater is, and that is what we could coin in Trinidad and Tobago as what might be our form of a national theater. It is what is done on the carnival stage, and Minshall is one of the very few people whose art lives, as Christoper says. So it's a great appreciation, and then it's a great platform for everyone else to jump off from. I mean, yes, we've gotten to bikini and beads, but maybe this COVID gets us back to the artistry and to the tradition of what mass is.
Yeah. Well, this is what I hope this film would do. In fact, one of the newer bands, soon after this film came out, wanted to show it to their members as to show them what mass was and could be again. Because that generation had no idea of that kind of mass. Absolutely no idea. They didn't know about it.
I have a quote from Peter Minshall, and it says, "Our kind of carnival represents theater in its most original form. In Europe, people pay to watch. Here, they pay to join in." So I also read something online that to wear one of Minshall's costumes costs $5,000. I don't know. Is it 5,000 American? How much does it cost to be, let's say I wanted to be a fish in Paradise Lost. How much does it cost?
That's cheap.
5,000 Trinidad or 5,000 American?
No. Well, maybe.
No, really.
In those days, I don't know. Maybe not that much. But I mean, costumes vary. You're a floor member with a standard costume for your section. It's much less than if you're playing an individual like the the special characters that you would have in a band. Those you pay a lot of money for that costume.
But you're casted and you have to pay, or you're casted or you pay? How does that work? Because they said the guy.
But you know what? I want to jump in on this question of pay.
Before you jump in, Janera, let me just say, because I come from a mass camp. I'm a Morris from Belmont. My uncle Ken Morris, we bring it back since grandfather days. And we worked with Peter for like over 12 years, you know, when he, from like Dance Macabre right back on up. And I have to say that the sections that my uncle Peter said, you take the kings and queens and the individual characters, and you do what you want, Ken. And that particular section of the band was the most expensive because my uncle made costumes that you could keep forever. He made out of, you know, he was a metal artist and all of that. So his costumes, I remember because I used to be a helper. I couldn't wear any of the costumes, but I was the one with the smelling sauce and the alcohol and the rum in my pocket just in case somebody want to drink. And those costumes cost $1,500
American
dollars. No, at that time, and that was very expensive. This was back in the 80s. And if you want to be in that section of band, like when they did Rats, he did Arista Rats. When he did Jungle Fever, these were the kings and queens of the jungle, let's say. And those were like $1,500, $2,000. And then, of course, you had other sections of the band, which was cheaper. That, so there was only like maybe about 25 people in that section, but the costumes were something that would last forever. People wanted to have.
Where are you going to wear it? You can't wear it twice. You can't wear it again.
Not when you wear it. After you finish wearing it, you could sell that for whatever and kept it as pieces of sculpture. I can bet you right now you could go in one of the old members' house and have those costumes. But the other sections were more expendable.
Let's
but now
Janera.
The BBF, the bikini beads and feathers, the BBF as we call them. That it's a bikini with lots of beads and a head. It's expensive, but it's nothing to really keep as a monument. So anyway. That in there.
Let's hear from Janera. I have a couple things we need to get to before we run out.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, Sandra, you said some of what I was going to say, so I appreciate that. I think the question of pay is really it's really something we need to really think about very carefully. There are sculptures and paintings and photographs and archival materials that are auctioned off at auction houses every day. People are paying millions and millions of dollars for. And yet when it comes to steel pan or costumes or Caribbean artists who are making artwork, or even asking a choreographer to choreograph something for something you're doing, people tend to say, well, why does it cost so much? Why do you need all that money? What was the difference? I was talking with a Nigerian artist about a year ago, and he said that people would ask him why his artwork cost so much. What would he do with all the money in Nigeria? And it just is a very offensive question for me when it comes to the money piece, because the work of art, who is to say what is valued except for us? The people who care about it. We have to set the value. We have to say what it's worth.
Jaron, thank you.
Jaron. I fully agree and I endorse that. But just to bring a different perspective, however, what's very interesting for me, and this is not to say this doesn't take away from the larger costumes, but what's interesting for me and what I've done with my work is delve into the Juve type masks and the traditional type masks that didn't cost much, and the masks that came from the actual resistance from these now freed Black people who came and they played based to celebrate their freedom, to celebrate their emancipation. So from that, we have our Jab Malassi, we have our Blue Devil, and all those kinds of masks that allows us to say something and really embody the resistance. I feel like looking in that direction again might be something that could bring back some value to the carnival that maybe we have lost. I will always say hats off to Peter Mention and all the other artists who use their skill to create the bigger costumes that still tell stories. Like, I mean, the Dying Swan from that was 2018. Christoper, correct me. That was just amazing. Moko jumping from a whole new perspective, new Moko jumping perspective. You know,
that's Minshall's. Like all great artists, they use the traditional and reinterpret it in contemporary terms, so that they're able to take a midnight robber and make him into the king that he had in when he did the whole band with robbers. He had a midnight robber as a king, and it was a huge thing. And so that he's able to take these, as Jared says, take the traditional masks and reinterpret it in terms of contemporary terms, and use the essence and the power of those traditional characters.
And if I could jump back in one more time, I think that's what, and Millicent could speak to this, that's what we did with my film.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the La Diablesse, which is a folk character, and it's two different worlds. Yeah. But we decided to look at Carnival from that perspective, look at resistance and reclaiming from the perspective of this woman's power as a dark angel, as the one who seeks out justice for women who have been wronged. And using her and using that, I would say, the vehicle of Carnival as a means to portray her as a new queen, a dark queen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That speaks to, of course.
Why couldn't she be
What'd you say, Sandra?
Why does she have to be a dark queen?
She's eating people's souls. Andrea, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why does she have to be a dark queen? What does that mean?
That means that her methods are not airy-fairy. She's not a rainbow or pony. That's what I meant by that. But and for me, I actually know what you're saying, because for me, her darkness is actually power and strength. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, we talked about that. Like, we embraced the fact that she was, you know, a warrior queen, dark queen, good, you know, like a dark witch, good witch, powerful, like everything, you know, everything that we know as African people, like, as far that's rooted in power and strength, that hasn't, again, going back to this larger narrative, the dominant narrative that suggests that it's not, we decided to embrace that, to like take it, turn it on its head, and really like go deeper inside of that.
So can you explain, what is a La Diablesse? Is she a vampire? Is she a succubus? What is she? You know, for somebody, like I said, a cultural outsider, I hear you guys talking about it, having fun, but I'm lost. So what is a La Diablesse? Why is she cursed? Why is she trying to take his son's soul? Why is it passing to the generations? Like, can you guys elaborate on that? Thank you.
Can I offer something, Jared? Before,
sure, go ahead.
So, Okechi, when we first started unpacking La Diablesse, we looked at, you know, how she was perceived in different cultural communities in Trinidad and Tobago. And the larger narrative at one point was that she was, you know, a villain, you know, La Diablesse, if you translate it, like a devil woman, right?
Right.
And so we were like, well, why is she considered this? And, you know, the more Jared would unpack with us, it was great, because every week we would have these like really in-depth conversations around syncretism, around, you know, these different forms of resistance that we have, you know, have utilized, I guess, as ways to survive, but also, you know, our ways to tell these stories. And what we found was that La Diablesse was, you know, she was villainized, basically. Yeah. So she is this woman that received this narrative because she went after men who harmed women. And so at the time, our entire creative team were black, you know, it was consisted of Black women, and Jared was, you know, steering us through this experience. And so we were like, what? So she received this rep because she got revenge on men who were womanizers and demeaned women. Help us understand that.
Sounds fair.
You know, so that really started to like shift it, even the internal narrative for us as a creative team. Like, all right, how do we take the teeth out of the shark and really give this woman, this character, some agency? You know, what are the things around Carnival that would position her with even more agency? Jared, you want to add to that?
Yeah.
Offer that? Yeah.
And let me jump right on the heels of that, just and touch back to what we were talking about before, because Blue Devil Mask, and I had to teach my students, because I taught secondary school for 7 years, and I had to teach my students, and this is a heavily Pentecostal school, about the Devil Mask and explain to them that it is a form of resistance mask where we said, our ancestors said, you called us devil, you said we have no souls, and we will now take that and we will claim it and we will turn it around and empower it. And that's the same approach we took to, as Millicent said, to Diablesse.
Yeah, that
she was villainized.
Okay.
Yeah, she was
Explains a lot.
villainized, and yeah, it does, because it's a very heavy patriarchal space, as in the Caribbean space, and men like to do what they want. Men like to womanize. They would beat a woman, and there is very little that's said about it. It's only spoken about in hushed tones, and even some years ago, you'd hear men say, "Oh God, well, she got a little licks. Where's the problem with that? She got a little licks." So
what does that mean?
Abuse to women, meaning that abuse to women, it's okay. It's not a big deal.
Licks like hit.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. So striking a woman is not a big deal. It's okay if she get a little lash. And that's the space that I grew up in. So for me, this character was going to be villainized because she came after those men. And if you know Caribbean folklore always, in a sense, tries to steer us in the direction that we should be going. There are lessons to be learned inside how the characters are built and inside the stories that are told. So it paired well for me, because this is also my story dealing with me and my father abandonment issues. So it's a very interesting line with that as well. But it paired well for me with a man who womanized and then made a son and then left because he could not deal with the pressure or the responsibility of raising a son. Not to mention, he was also having an outside affair with the Diablesse unknowing to him. And he ran when he realized who she was, but she said, you can't get away. Because she was not just, and it wasn't just a mission to catch this man, but it was to kind of put him through his paces and teach him. So she put him through these different, visual spaces that she created to have him see what his absence did to his son. Because I think that some men, of course, I have to be so careful, but some men, because not all men are like that. But from the generations before me, some men, Christoper, I'm sorry, but there are a lot of men who left Trinidad and Tobago, who left the Caribbean, and they went to the States searching for a better life. A lot of these men left their women with their children to raise. And we, because I'm one of those children, had to navigate the space without a father and understand how to grow. Like, I now have a son. And one of the questions I had when I realized that we were having a son is, can I raise a son having not been taught how to be a man by a man? That was something I had to unpack for myself. And it's inside there that this film lives for me.
That's wonderful. I have one last question before we take audience questions. It is for you, Millicent and Jared. why did you make that demon realm where La Diablesse, where she lived? Why did you decide to make that a carnival? Is it because she's a carnival character? Even though I'm my understanding of her is that she's a folklore. So what and how did that impact your choreography? Also, your connection to New Orleans. You're from Fayette, Louisiana, and your grandmother was a dancer. So can you just shed a little light on that?
Yeah, well, like I was saying, Jared and I met every week to unpack the story, right? So we went through a series of critical response processes. Jared was developing the story with some faculty at FSU. And in addition to that, we were going into this kind of story development process with myself and our creative team. And, you know, naturally as an artist, like I am always going to bring my experiences to the table. I'm always going to bring my scholarship and my expertise to the table. And thankfully, I was working with an artist who was very open to that. So we engaged in a lot of conversations around abandonment, because I too grew up in a cultural community where my father was a jazz musician my whole life, who was in and out, you know, like a revolving door in my life. And as a child, especially a young child artist, I had to learn how to deal with that. So when we started to find these kind of commonalities between the way we grew up culturally, I think it was easier for us to find points of interconnectivity in the story to help it, you know, to help the narrative kind of flow. The choreographer actually is Shaquille. Gosh, what is Shaquille's last name? I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting it right now.
Jones.
That's right, Shaquille Jones. He's from Tobago, and he was a master's student in the dance department here at Florida State. So we worked with him. We worked with another choreographer and cultural consultant, Kieran Sargent. Again, they were at the table in conversation with us the entire time around, you know, the story, but also authenticity, what was coming up for them, what they were pushing up against, how they thought, you know, other audiences from Trinidad and Tobago would respond to how we were playing with Carnival inside of this particular story. You know, we did have some conversations around how the traditionalists would think about us taking this folk character and placing her inside of, you know, like a carnival experience. And so, you know, at the end of the day, what we landed on was this is a concept film. And ultimately, we would love to secure financing so that we could produce a feature where we can really unpack the nuances of the story. Because there's just, you know, there's so much. Again, we started the conversation talking about the complexity of the Caribbean, right? And so without there being enough time to really unpack some of those things, we've really tried to truncate it into a 15-minute concept film. So that's kind of how it all came together. But it was a lot of dialogue, a lot of holding each other accountable, you know, a lot of research, a lot of Jared offering his perspective, you know, as a theater director, but also as a filmmaker, as a activist, as a cultural organizer, myself offering the same similar perspective, and really just kind of wrestling with how do we hold ourselves accountable in telling this story? You know, no one in the room wanted to villainize La Diablesse, and and honestly, we were getting some pressure from some outside forces to make her a certain way, and we were like,
dark.
Absolutely not. And in the same way, the Blue Devils. Why the Blue Devils? Why carnival creatures? Why this? Why that? What is street performance? You know, what's the value in that? And we were really adamant about telling the story in the way we wanted to tell it, because we knew it was rooted in a very intimate cultural experience and also research.
Right. No, that's beautiful. And that's a beautiful way to present that information. It's giving it a different perspective. And I think it'll provoke conversation. I'm going to take some audience questions. Thank you for that.
Okay. So, excuse me, I just want to put this one line in there. That there are no devils in African religion or culture. Devils are a European, out of that angel and devil Catholic religion, hell and heaven sort of thing. So all those devils, La Diablesse, Jab, Jamolasi, all came out of the freed African princesses. symbolizing the evilness of slavery and the cruelty of it, and through these devil-like creatures. Okay, enough said.
Thank you. No, thank you. I really wanted to bring that up too, Sandra, because I had just spoke to you on the phone. You had a costume where you were Jab, and you educated me around that. I wanted to talk about it, so thank you for offering that.
Okay.
We got to take some questions from the audience, guys. There's a lot of questions from the audience. Karen mentioned that in the old day, carnival bands were theater and storytelling. How do the carnival bands differ in theme today? But we kind of talked about that. You guys said it's bikinis now. Or not, if you want to.
Well, I think we dealt with that earlier on, that the way things have changed. Modern bands, except for the more traditional mass, the modern bands don't have stories, and they just it's like a moving fet in a costume. There's
Concepts.
no rhyme or reason to it. It's just to jump up and play mass, so to speak. But they don't have any concept of what I understand from my youth of a traditional carnival where you play the mass, as Minshall talks about. You play the mass. That is, you inhabit the costume in a way and play it. You don't just wear a costume because it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not it. That's not it. You play it.
That's the part where they get to participate and be part of a movie.
That's the way things have changed, and playing the mass is the key. And I think Jared could probably talk a lot about that because of his work with Tony and so on. That is really what Tony was trying to do as well, to try and instill that in younger people. How you play the mass, let the mass inhabit you, become inside of you, so that you become the character. And that doesn't happen in most of the commercial bands anymore. Don't play characters, you don't do anything like that.
Thank you. I have another question for you, Mr. Laird. When Minshall and other mass men mention cane, are they referring to sugar cane?
It's not sugar cane. It's cane as in cane furniture, for example. It's a light cane that you use to weave baskets or furniture or whatever. It's a rod, a long rod,
like
very light, very thin. It's about maybe 1 centimeter in diameter. And that's the cane. And not sugar. Sugar cane would be too heavy.
Oh yeah.
Is it like wicker? Do you know wicker? Maybe something like that.
Probably similar to that.
Okay. Yeah. And then also, I just wanted to clarify when you guys are saying mass, because I was confused earlier. Mass, like not church mass, it's mass for masquerade. Masquerade.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. Next question for Jared. Can you talk about why you chose this folk character as a meta narrative to comment on failed father-son relationships?
Yes, I can. I'll give two perspectives, which link to each other. The first reason is I grew up with my mother. So my rod of correction or cane of correction was always my mother, guiding me to make the right choices. And as Millicent said, we did so much research. We found so many different stories about the Diablesse, because I grew up knowing these stories. I've worked with these stories as well in my theater work. But I did even more research and found so many different versions of the story, and all of these stories sought to villainize this character. And the root of this story for me is dealing with the Caribbean father and how it affects that home relationship, father and son relationship. And I felt, who better to guide this man back to his path or to hold him accountable than a woman? And I also wanted to play within the folklore, because a lot of my work will stem from folklore, will stem from carnival. That's where I want to play in terms of what I want to create. And I wanted to link those two worlds together. And for me, this character was the character that would do it best, because this man was absent from his home because he was a womanizer, because he did not respect women. Look at how the film started, where he was abusive as well. Who is the folk character that will hold him accountable? for me, the answer is La Diablesse. That's what she does.
And Jared, one thing I wanted to say about when I watched the film that I appreciated is, and it goes back to something Christoper said earlier, the way it brings a very current social issue present and brings it forward for discussion. I think that is one of the parts of Carnival that I also miss, in addition to the idea of playing mass, like, the calypsos, the calypsonians that made music during this time. Those you could always count on some of those calypsos being about something political, social, powerful, in addition to being fun and partying and dancing and offering a new dance or whatever. There was always every year something provocative that was political and social, and we're not seeing that as much in the music that's being made, that's being associated with Carnival either. So I appreciated that about the film as well, that it brings forward something that we all need to talk about. We need to talk more about.
Fully agree with that. If I could offer one thing really quickly, when we were screening the film, one of our fellow students had an issue with, and he's from Lebanon, and he had an issue with the violence in that scene where the father is choking one of his women, who eventually was the La Diablesse. And I knew that it's not going to resonate well with everyone. However, once again, it's also my training, and I pull from certain theorists, and Artaud, which is the theater theorist, and he speaks to his theater of cruelty. And for me, it's necessary for us to present that cruelty, and the effect it has on the audience is actually what we need to have to provoke the discussion. Because otherwise, in my world, violence against women is swept under the rug. So unless we put it in your face, it's going to be swept again. So that was the reason why I chose to leave it there. Millicent co-signed on it. She was on board. So, and that was okay. Millicent was my guiding rock. Like, if I'm going off course, she would say, I don't know about that. And she gets me back on track. So, yeah.
Wonderful. No, that's wonderful.
I have a question. Is the film going to be longer? You're going to add more to this La Diablesse?
We hope so.
I would love to.
We got to secure some financing first.
Yeah, I actually have a feature length version of this. So Millicent and I, we just need some funding, and we will run with this.
Yeah,
we're ready to run with it.
Mm-hmm. We had
one more thing.
I was just going to offer, we had a lot of community partners that came to the table as well in Tallahassee. And if not for them, we really wouldn't have been able to make it work. We had the cross-cultural Railroad Square Cross-Cultural Coalition. They donated most of the paintings and the sculptings and the folk art that you saw in the film. The dancers, we had dancers from the School of Dance. We had Solange's choreographer was also in the film. The community stepped up. When we were like, we want to tell this story, we have a limited amount of funding to make it happen. Who wants to be involved? And we were really blown away by the amount of support. The National Carnival Commission also helped us with getting all of the actors from Trinidad and Tobago to the United States, which was again like a huge help and benefit. I'm again just blown away by the amount of support that we were able to galvanize here in Tallahassee, Florida. Was just incredible.
That's amazing. I love it. I just want to wrap it up, guys. What I would like to do is, if there's a way that we can support your film, if you could tell our audience how we can support your film or help you get to the feature. Janera, same thing. If there's a way that we can support you, your organization. Mr. Laird, if there's a way, where can we go to see Paradise Lost? I would love to watch it again. I had to get used to the Caribbean accent. I actually, the first pass, somebody had asked about the subtitles on La Diablesse. The first time I watched it, I'm not going to hold you. Like, I did not understand, but I'm getting more used to the dialect. So please let us know how our audience can reach out to you and continue this conversation. Millicent.
Oh, I was just going to toss the ball to Jared to talk about our social media platforms.
But we only have 5 minutes, guys, so we got to wrap it up.
Well, you can find us on Facebook and on Instagram, Diablesse Curse Movie. So at Diablesse Curse Movie, reach out to us. Let's talk further about how you get involved, and we can get some funds rolling, and we can also get some stories being told. Yeah, we're excited.
Fabulous. Thank you. Janera, how can we reach out, interact with you?
Yeah, so I'm here in Pittsburgh, and I'm doing a lot of writing right now. And one of the things I'm doing in my space is experimenting with, in a very limited fashion, with artist residencies. And so I'm really excited to say the first artist that I'm going to experiment with is my father, Phil Solomon. Yeah,
that's so wonderful.
He turns 75 next Friday.
Yes.
And he says he still has new ideas. He has some new ideas for design for steel pan, and he wants to make them. So we're going to be doing that this spring. He's going to be here in my space with me. So I'll keep everybody posted on that.
Fieldwork Arts. Thank
amazing.
you. And Mr. Laird, how can we?
If anyone wants to see Paradise Lost again, or to share it or whatever, just contact me, Laird, at Pan Caribbean, one word, pan as in steel pan, pancaribbean.com. And we can organize either online sharing or a DVD or whatever. Of course, we have something like 300 other films, but that, if you're interested in what, also Jared mentioned Dying Swan, which I made also. It's a short film on the Dying Swan King. And that's also available. In fact, that could be seen free on Vimeo. Again, just contact me and I can direct you, give you the link or whatever.
Excellent.
Thank you. And Sandra, JouvayFest.com. Check out her marketplace.
Yeah, we're here in Brooklyn, these Trinis in Brooklyn, and we are more than Trinis now. We've got people from all over the Caribbean with us inside of that JouvayFest Collective. And our whole focus is presenting and preserving J'ouvert Trinbago style and collaborating with other like-minded organizations. And part of it is taking J'ouvert, the story of J'ouvert, which is a story of resistance and resilience all over the world. So we've been to Rabat, Morocco, we've been to the Ivory Coast, we have been to Senegal in 2019, and we hope to continue to go to Ghana and Mali to share this story of J'ouvert, which is so important that people have misconstrued and been tossed around. So that's our mission. And of course, we, like everybody else, need money because, like, J'ouvert is not important, of course. So we have a marketplace where there's jfmarketplace.com, where we try to sell things from our travels and Caribbean goods to try to sustain ourselves, because we need the support, like all of us here in this forum.
Yes.
So we will help each other, cross promote, tell everybody, look at resources and share the resources, etc. That's part of our mission as well.
By all means. And once again, thank you, Sandra. Yes, support everyone here. Artists, we need support. Even Elvis Kosh, he expressed to me, as an indigenous filmmaker in Guatemala, they need support. It's just an uphill battle. Haiti Dance Co., Barrels to Beethoven, get involved. Carib Funk. This is why we're here. I'm so excited. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to share with all these artists and these filmmakers and share these stories. Thank you to the City of Asylum, Abby, Carla, Alexis, you guys are the bomb. Khalil and Mike, we're so thankful. We're so grateful for this opportunity. God bless Sabira. God rest her. Aluta continua. Good night. We here. We out here.
We have our next show coming up. March the 14th. So
yes, March the 14th. And of course, if you think what we're producing is quality, there is a link in the chat. You can donate to Sabira Cole Festival, JouvayFest Collective. But yes, get involved with the arts for sure.
Thank you all for organizing this. We appreciate it. It's a pleasure
you very
being
much.
everyone sharing the space. Yeah.
Very much. Okay.